Chiropractors, no-shows, last-minute cancellations, ghosting. It's because people are lazy and disrespectful, right? Wrong. The truth is, it has a lot more to do with what the practice is doing as opposed to the leads themselves. And what's really hurtful is that a lot of practices are sitting on tens of thousands of dollars in new patients, care plans, programs, just rotting in their calendar because of this. And what makes it even worse is that a lot of you pay for these leads. In this video, I'm going to be unpacking the real reason as to why people miss their appointments and don't show up, and what clinics are actively doing to remove that problem virtually from their business and unlock money, revenue that's already in their business. Let's jump in.
Okay, welcome to this video, appointment placement. Avoid being put on the back burner. That's a weird thing to say. What does that mean? So, we've all been there. We plan to do something for ourselves, maybe a week or two in advance, but then something else that demands more of your time than you can give yourself gets in the way, and we put our plans on the back burner, quote unquote. Or maybe nothing's changed. You just can't be bothered anymore, so you don't follow through, even though you know you should. But you make an excuse, right? And it's the same for prospects, for leads. The time between scheduling and the appointment date has a significant impact on show rates. As you would have found out over the years of practicing, this stands true. As time passes, motivation often decreases and the likelihood of unexpected obstacles and problems increase, right? And people become less committed to their original plans, regardless of the importance. And why is that? Because new tasks and issues in their immediate environment tend to take precedence because they're more available. Not because they're more significant, but simply because they're close. It's perceived as being closer to them. You got to remember, this is not something that people are running through consciously. It's almost like a subconscious pattern, because the problem is closer to them. They prioritize it, and people have this warped way of prioritizing things that doesn't really make sense. So when you have an appointment date that's far out, and people have their lives, and things are always going to go wrong in your life. If you have a life without problems or surprises, you probably have a boring life, right? So this happens to everyone. But because the likelihood of things happening increases as time lapses, it kind of puts us at a disadvantage. And it's very easy for people to put us on the back burner because something came up, right? Let's look at an example. Someone could have an appointment scheduled a week in advance, and they notice that their fence needs repairing, so they call a contractor. But it turns out that the contractor needs 2 days to do the fence, which happens to fall right on the day of the appointment that they have with you. Which one should they prioritize? Obviously their health. But because of how apparent the problem of the fence is, which do you think they'd be tempted to prioritize? The fence repair, right? And this is just an example of availability bias, because the fence repair, just because it's there with them in that moment, it seems like such a large problem that they're willing to prioritize something that's nowhere near even close to as important as their own health, right? It's called availability bias, right? This kind of bias, it skews people's perception of importance, and it often leads to inefficient or counterproductive decision making, as we know. It's like, let's say you're cooking and momentarily you leave the kitchen to check on something in another room. While you're there, you probably notice something that needs your attention, and instead of returning to the stove or the kitchen, you get sidetracked addressing the less urgent task, right? And even though the food on the stove is more critical, the task in the other room feels more pressing because you're physically there, right? So much like leaving food on the stove to check on something in another room, when a client books an appointment far in advance, the urgency of their appointment fades into the background. And when other tasks pop up in their line of sight, it diverts their attention. And even though the stove, the appointment in this case, is still cooking and requires most of our attention, they're unable to perceive that, or even to separate themselves from what's right in front of them. Okay, so we need to do something to circumvent that. We can't leave that responsibility in the hands of other people. As weird as that sounds, and yeah, like we're dealing with adults here, but if we want to succeed, we have to take some of that responsibility. We have to take some of that power, right? So no shows don't necessarily mean no interest, right? It's not necessarily a reflection of lead quality or the seriousness of their condition. And it's not that, the issue isn't, genuine, or there isn't a concern to be addressed. Often it's just people's inability to prioritize things. And so when you're booking appointments, the sooner is better, because we minimize the potential for these roadblocks, which will happen, to get in the way. We minimize the potential of these roadblocks getting in the way, right? So for optimal show rates, where possible, do same day appointments if you can do it. If you have the facility and you have the, you can make the arrangements to have same day appointments, do it, right? Keep that momentum going. I would prioritize having appointments within 1 to 3 days, and at a push 4 to 7 days. Beyond 7 days, like, very difficult. Very difficult. Obviously, there are people who are going to be able to prioritize, and they will show up to that point. I'm not saying that it's not possible, but it's very difficult beyond 7 days for the majority of people. And you can create a system where you triage things. So if you have appointments beyond 7 days occurring, you can say, hey, beyond 7 days, we can't guarantee your appointment. And then when people who are more serious, want an appointment, and that appointment happens to be within 3 days, you can triage and say, there's an appointment. You can swap out that person who doesn't necessarily have that same level of commitment, that perceived level of commitment, to be scheduled in early. So you can find ways around this, and that involves having a proper SOP, standard operating procedure, to triage these things. But for the purpose of simplicity, it's much easier to try and do same day appointments if you have the facility. Prioritize 1 to 3 days, at a push do 4 to 7 days, and just know that you can't really rely on people to prioritize things, right? We can do a lot of other things to preserve show rates, and we'll go through what those things are. But pulling that appointment forward to keep the momentum going is going to help immensely. All right, so focus on these two. So same day appointments, and prioritize 1 to 3 days. If you have to, at a push, then you go to 4 to 7 days.
Hey, if you found that video valuable, my name is Craig. I work with chiropractors in the UK and the US, and I help them unlock 10, 20, sometimes even $30,000 in monthly revenue that's already existing inside their business by reducing no-shows, cancellations, and upping appointments and consultations. Now, the cool thing is, we do that without increasing marketing spend, without overhauling systems, without overloading staff with additional work. And the extra cool thing about that is, if we don't hit their numbers, they don't pay a dime to work with us. Now, if you feel like that could be valuable to your business, if you feel like, you'd want to unlock revenue that's technically already there's going to be an opportunity to have a call with me so I can lay everything out and answer any of your questions. It's going to be in the description below. Just click on that link, and I'll see you on the other side.